All right, hello everybody. I'm gonna get started in just a second. Just want to make sure everything's working. We should be going in the next 20, 30 seconds. I think everything looks good though. Just gonna make sure I don't have extra sounds playing and stuff. So today the plan. Oh, I am muted somewhere, huh? Where am I muted? 1 second. Audio check. Oh, it looks good. Oh, okay. Sorry. Never mind. A little bit of a delay there. All right, sounds good now. I think we are. Are we good now? I don't know. Here, I'll just test it. Let's hear my own sound. No, I'm good. I can hear me. Everything seems to be working. So the plan today is yeah, sorry, get myself all mixed up there. The plan today is to do some game design. I sent out an email shared a couple days ago about a comment that popped up. Actually, you know what? Maybe I should just let me see. Maybe I'll share that. So I think I still have it up here. Let me see if I can share that comment and show you guys exactly what it said and kind of what inspired this thing. So do share screen, application window. There we go. Snag it. Perfect. So let's pop this thing up real quick. So the comment was, oh, can we zoom this in? Yeah, will you do something like an overview of how to use Millinote or Hack-A-Plan or how you do project planning with these tools? And I think the reason it came up is because I've been talking about project planning a decent amount recently. Even did a little sponsored Millinote video. This is not anything like that. That's not what this is. This is just I thought it was a great question and it's something I need to do really soon. So I actually figured I'll do some live game design right now that I'll use for some tutorial video that I'm working on. So I want to build out a new beginner tutorial for 3D to do a kind of like a top down shooter. And I'm thinking maybe a multiplayer top down shooter for beginners type thing. So I thought maybe I would do the design document on that, go through like the design process that I would like to follow personally, and then go through with everybody on chat, see what kind of ideas you guys have for games or game designs, and maybe we can go through and design them. There's some really cool stuff we can do, and I just wanted to show the process that I've been using lately that I think is kind of helpful and might just inspire people. Also, I figured I could get some feedback and just thoughts from other people on stuff that would be cool. So let's see. Let's unmaximize that. Let's switch it up, and I'm gonna share the other screen now. So let's stop screen sharing that one, and we'll pop on my Chrome tab here where we'll do the actual design. So I believe it's that one. Let's see. We'll find out in a second. All right, it just popped up. It's on and live, and we'll go into closed caption mode. So this is the tool that I've been using for managing projects lately. I started using it when Andreas recommended it, like I don't know, it's been like a month or so now ago, and I was just kind of blown away with how cool it was. It did a lot of stuff that I kind of wanted to do in other things that I couldn't, and it also did the things that the other tools I was using already did. So normally, what I would use is Trello or a Hack and Plan. I really like too because it's got some really cool features. But this is kind of my new addiction. So here I've got a design board that was kind of already created. This is like an empty area, and there's this board here where I can go in and just make a game design document or a game design board, and then go fill it in with stuff. This one is already filled in, so I'm just going to double click on it and open it and show kind of what it looks like and then how to regenerate it real quick, just so anybody that's watching can kind of get an idea of what it's like and do it on their own if they want. And then I'll go through and actually do the design. So here you see it's got a whole bunch of stuff. It's got some project management stuff, a comment that I added that this is just literally the default stuff when you create a new board, a concept art area, marketing stuff, sound effects, and you can go down into these different boards and kind of drill in. So there's some concept art on characters. I can go back up a level here, go look at the enemies. So I'm not going to have any concept art at all. So I'm just going to end up eventually deleting it. So I'll just drag that down to trash real quick. Marketing stuff. Obviously, I'm not going to market anything either, but I'll just go through and just kind of give you a quick peek of what it looks like. So it's like different stuff for how you would market your game. Not going to do any of that either. Inspiration and references. So kind of like the kind of thing that you would actually want to have in a game, the stuff where your inspirations or whatever, the things are kind of like leading the game or giving you ideas of what things should look and feel like. I'm going to toss that for now too. And we'll get rid of, actually, I'm going to just kind of get rid of everything. So I'll select it all, hit delete. And the reason I want to do that is so I can show you how we create. Oh, there's one more board over here. Delete that one too. Is how to create the new one. So whenever you have an empty new board, ooh, let's change my position real quick. Can we make that bigger? Okay, well, for a second, I'll change it like this. When you have an empty new board, down in the bottom right corner, you get an area to just choose a template and go to more templates. And there are actually two sections that I like here. So one is game design specific. So if we go into game design, you'll see this game design document. That was the one that I just showed you here, the one that had all these things in it, kind of like an outline for it. And if you want to keep the example stuff, you check that box and then hit use template. It generates all of those child boards and stuff. I think on the free plan though, this game design board will almost fill up your free plan. So when it auto generates all of the child items and stuff, that was the only thing really that I remember noting about that. Let me go through the other one though that I like. So if you go to more templates and then under the game design stuff, there's a lot of cool ones, but the other one that I really liked was under software development and technical architecture. I really like this one because it just showed a kind of a way that I could visualize and link systems together. And I've got some systems in other game design, other documents that I don't want to share right now, where all of the systems are kind of linked together, how they're linked together, and then I can drill down into each one of those systems and see the details on. This is again, it's kind of the default stuff. So I'm just going to delete it, and I'm going to start with I think just a new plan. Oh, here, let's try project plan one. No, I don't want to do that. Let's see. Let's find a good template. So there were one other template type I want to show real quick before I kick it off, which was the under productivity. There's a weekly plan and a Kanban board. And these are the other two things that I use for actual like planning of this stuff. And I kind of go through. Now I'm not going to fill out like a whole Kanban board of all the stuff here because that would be I think too much work to plan out the exact details of everything that I'm going to do. But I will kind of set it up a little bit and get an idea of what it's going to look like and then maybe go through like a little weekly plan or something if I want to. I like to use these weekly plans for coursework so that I can kind of plan out what's going to be in each bit of course stuff. All right, so let's go with let's see, what did I want to start with? I think I'm going to start with the architecture one actually. So we'll just go technical architecture and I'm going to use this template and just kind of have it as kind of a base starting point. So got a bunch of different pieces. I'm going to rename this instead of third-party services. I'll call this gameplay systems. Actually, you know what? Let me delete this. I'm gonna try something a little bit different. I'm gonna start with a clear board, and I'm just gonna add in a little to-do list. So I'll just drag it over here, and let's start with just a list of stuff that I want to do first before I just start dragging in random things and building up a design. So I come up with the general theme. I want to explain it real quick, and then I want to let's see, determine the game design elements. So this is like the more like the key. I guess how do I want to word this? It's really the core gameplay. I guess these are kind of the same thing. I don't know. I'm gonna leave them separate, but I think they're kind of really the same thing. I want to figure out what my gameplay mechanics are going to be. I want to figure out characters and some sort of a plan. So a development plan. Now, this is going to be a relatively simple game, so I should be able to go through all of this on the stream, and we can just kind of do it together. So the first thing is just explaining the general theme of the game that we're going to build out, or the game that I'm going to design. So what I was thinking here is, again, it's going to be for a YouTube video, so it's got to be something that'll fit into maybe like 2 to 4 hours to build from start to finish. I want it to be beginner friendly, so not too many mechanics. So we'll limit it to like maybe I'm thinking not just one core mechanic of shooting, but maybe like two. So maybe like a shooting and a special shooting type thing. So um, my general thought is like, well, why don't we get some inspiration real quick? So I'm gonna find some inspiration online. Let's find a Smash TV. So it's one of the fun examples that I've liked to use before, and it looks God, the graphics are terrible on it, but I think the gameplay is kind of close to what I want to see. So let me share that screen real quick. Let's switch over. Or actually, you know what am I doing? The browser. I just go bam, paste. There we go. So Smash TV. I'm thinking I'll do something like this, like way better graphics, of course. Obviously not pixel graphics because I couldn't do pixel graphics I wanted to. We'll do something 3D top down. We're running around just blasting stuff. Now I'm not sure if I want to do this theme. So let's copy this. So if I hit right click and just hit copy image, and I go back over here to Millinote, let it load up and just paste. It'll actually add in a card. That's kind of cool, right? It just drops in a card. Now I can just have the image in here. So I'm going to add this as like a inspiration. So let's add another board that's kind of the inspiration. So I'll put the board here, drag it in. So to do that, by the way, here, I'll show you how to do it. Took a board, drag it, and it just becomes a new board. I'll call it inspiration. And then it gets the little thing. And I'll just drag the picture into there. This is just going to be a board of pictures or things that I think I kind of want to use. So I'm going to do that. I want to go with some stuff on Mixamo too. So one of the things I like to use a lot is Mixamo.com. Let me just load up the site real quick. So log in here. We'll get all logged in with everything. Okay, we're going to have some problems logging in. Maybe not. Okay, we're in. So hold on. I got to restart that sharing. That's what happens when you click things without paying attention. That's what I just did. I just saw a button and clicked it and then accidentally closed everything. All right, so here we go. We're back up. Let's reshare that screen. So I want to grab a character from here, I think, for inspiration. Instead of using one of my own, a lot of time what I'll do is just reuse characters I've used in the past or grab something on the asset store. But since I think I want to do something that looks kind of a little bit fancy or gives people options too to pick the kind of character that they want to have, I'm going to go with one of these characters here. So for inspiration, I'm thinking I want to shoot stuff, and it's either going to be magical stuff or weapons. I think guns are probably easier, so I'll go with a more futuristic sci-fi type thing. But I think if anybody wanted to, they'd be able to just go with something else. It was just kind of my thinking, at least for what I want to pick on the video. So let's go find a character that's let's see, let's try this SWAT guy. To look like, yeah, so top down, I don't know how that's gonna look top down. Let's see if there's something else that might look a little bit cooler from up above. It's just that he looks so gray and camo. I worry that like he's gonna be hard to see on the ground. Maybe not though. Maybe it'll be okay. Let's see if there's anything else that I can use for a little bit of ideas here. Try that. Let's see what this guy looks like. Maybe I'll get a little bit inspired to switch up the themes completely and go with some magic shooting wizard dude. That could be fun too, I guess, right? I don't know. What do you, here, this, I guess the benefit of having people in chat isn't it to do with this with a like a sci-fi theme or like I guess like a futuristic, like somewhat realistic shooting like guns and rockets, or go with like a magic and maybe like a melee attack and a launching thing or a bow or something. Actually, that could be really cool. Anybody got? I guess go ahead if you guys have any opinions, just put them in chat. If there's a big consensus, then I'll just go with the consensus. But yeah, I see the first one's already leaning towards magic, and I think I'm kind of inclined that way. It's not normally the way that I go, so might be a little bit different. Yeah, let's try that out. Maybe like a wizardy based magic one. Yep, two magics already. So let's go for that. Saying with a bow, yeah, because there was an archer in here, right? Let's find the archer guy. Maybe have him be like an archer that shoots magic or shoots magic missiles out too. Where was that bow and arrow dude? There we go. Erica Archer. We'll use her. She can be the first character. So I'm gonna take a screenshot of her. Just hold down print screen. I use a Snagit for my screenshots. Freaking awesome. Friend Joe recommended it, and I've been stuck with it ever since. And I'm gonna put it on my clipboard, copy it, and then I'll go back over to Millinote. Let me open it up again. Right here, up in the Millinote. Log back in and paste. There we go. Got it in. So I go with archery. I'm gonna go back up a level and let's add some general notes about the game. So archery and magic. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna label this. This is gonna be my let's add a title. Be my gameplay mechanics. It's gonna be the start of my mechanics for my game. So figuring out what it is I want it to have and how it's gonna work. So it's gonna be top down movement too. Down movement. Thinking of the things I want. Well, I mean, actually, you know what? While I'm at it, let's just go through and think through some more mechanics that I'm going to have here. So, a top-down game where I'm running around with this character right here. In fact, I'm going to move this up a level for a moment. I'm going to put them all on one board just for actually, you know what? Here, let's go this. Can I duplicate it? Let's see, duplicate, and I'll just drag it onto there. I want to have it in both spots so I can kind of think through stuff and not have to bounce around while I'm at it. Eventually, this board is going to build up, and I'm going to want to have them kind of in there. But for now, I'll give it its own. Let's go with a column. Say column inspiration. Drop this picture in there. We'll drop the board in there so that way I can have the details down there, but I can also see kind of the stuff here. And I think I'm going to make this mechanics into a column too. Take that. We'll take this list, drop it in there as a child, and I can get rid of the title because it's the same thing, right? And then, but the reason for that is so that I can just drop in some details on these other systems. What else am I going to have here? I've kind of explained the general theme. Um, Game design elements. We haven't really gone over that. So, what other stuff am I going to have? We got a little bit of the gameplay mechanics. I don't think that this is done, so I'm not going to check it off yet. But I kind of want to look at the game design elements too, 'cause I'm just bouncing all around, which is kind of what happens when I'm starting out on a game design. All kinds of different ideas and stuff, and I want to figure out what I want to do, and then organize it as we go along. So, let's see. Next up, design elements. So the things that I want to have here, I need to have some enemies. I'm just going to add a column for enemies right now. This will be whatever enemy related stuff I'm going to have. I think I want to have, let's see, with this guy walking around, what's a good enemy? Maybe like some orcs or something, some ogres. In fact, you know what? Why don't I go back to Mixamo and just take a peek and see if there's maybe a character on there that I can use. So here, we'll go back over to Mixamo. I'm sure there's a bad guy in here that would work totally fine for this game. Use the big giant mouse. Maybe we could use this big weird looking dude as a boss. Maybe I assume that's what he's made for. Make a guy and make him one of the bad guys, just so that I can make him kind of charge head down with his horns at you. So I'm thinking like this guy just run in from the. So I have two, maybe have like 3 or 4 different enemies, right? And have this guy be one that like starts walking and then kind of tilts his head down and runs in really fast or something. So like the high speed enemy, and then I'll have a slow speed enemy, so we have some variety. So let's go with that. I'll take this dude. I've got him on my clipboard here. I'll jump back over to Millinote. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put a couple of them on here. So let's go over to Millinote in my other tab. And I'm just going to paste over pictures of all of them. And then we'll go sort them together. So I'll take that guy as the fast runner. And then let's see what else we got for something that could be a bad guy here. What's this goblin look like? Is he going to fit with the theme? I mean, uh, maybe he's kind of an archer, and I don't know. I don't know if I want to teach them how to make NPCs with archery in video one, or in like in a beginner lesson like this. Let's see what else we got here. A nightshade. I don't know. She looks a little hardcore. There's something that looks like a dumb little NPC that's running up. Maybe I will go with one of these knights as like just the generic bad guy. Yeah, let's do that. So it'll be a generic knight coming at you and a ram horn dude, and you're a magic bow and arrow girl trying to defend yourself. Fight off all these guys. All right, so copy that one and paste it over too, and then I'm gonna switch boards so you guys can see my new board with the 2 screenshots. So we've got this guy right here as an enemy. Oh, let's drop him on here, and this guy will be one of my other enemies. So I got those 2 guys ready to go, or planned out at least, not ready to go really, right? Planned out as enemies, and then I got this is gonna be my player character. In fact, let's make a new column for the player. Press player, and we'll take this. So this is no longer really inspiration. This is more my actual characters. The inspiration board has now just become this little it's going to be Smash TV-ish. So I'm going to delete that from here since I've decided this isn't that at all. And we'll rename this to I don't know. I don't even know if I need my inspiration board anymore. I know it's like Smash TV, and I don't have enough good inspiration pictures there. I'm just going to move it over to my unsorted section and decide later. If pop that side out, you can just drop things over there and hide them. I think that'll work. Then maybe I'll grab it later. Maybe I'll just delete it. All right. So for gameplay mechanics, let's see. Let's write up a little note on exactly how you play. So start in the middle of an area, roam around and explore. Bad guys charge at you to kill you. I think that's about it. And then you shoot enemies with arrows and magic spells. Now you figure out what those magic spells are. And you see here the enemies are kind of over that column. I'll just move them over here. Like let's take that kind of over here. I want to add a title to this. Let's see. Add a title. This is gonna be my to-do list. This is really like what that is. This is the list of things I want to do. Got my mechanics. I've got my player figured out and my enemies. I don't have any details of my player enemies figured out. So I'll get onto that in just a little bit. We'll start to build up the actual like code architecture, the design for how the game will go together and how it'll start to hook things up. But we got to get out the kind of the high level stuff first before we can dive into the real details. So let's see. Core gameplay mechanics. I think that's kind of it. Now I'm thinking I probably want to add like health pickups too. So I want to have a health system for the player and health pickups. Like I want to give them something that they can go grab. I don't really want to go through like power ups and all that. It's a little bit more complicated than we'll fit into a video. But a simple health that goes up and down works. Oh, and then I'm gonna need a health UI, and I want some sort of a scoring system. And I think that's it. So I'm thinking the game is endless. Let's see. Endless waves of bad guys. Survive as long as or survive gets the most points. So you just keep going until you can't get any more points, right? That's kind of the thought. You just keep more and more guys coming, just speeds up faster and faster and faster. And challenges see how many points you can get roaming around. Oh, and I also want to have level building. Right? It's kind of I mean, so actually that's an interesting one because it doesn't really. That's not part of the game. It's part of the level or part of the video plan and the system for it. So I want to have yeah, let's call it interesting level building. So or custom. I'm gonna delete it because I don't think it really makes sense as part of the game. But my goal is that the person watching the video can go through and make a cool level and design things around that. But so I guess I just want it to support a variety. Let's put something there. So it supports variety of terrain made by a viewer. Right. So whoever's watching it can make terrain and it will work. So that's going to be just one of the mechanics or one of the goals at least. All right. So let's see. Let's go on to. I think I can check off that I've determined or defined my core gameplay mechanics, and I think even really kind of what these design elements are going to look like at the high level. This is again my high level to do. We're not getting into any of the details yet. And a development plan and characters would be next. In fact, characters. Let's build up the characters at a quick high level. So we've got this soldier dude. I think I can double click on him. Just call him a. Let's see. Edit. I don't want to change the picture. What do I want to do here? Click on him. Oh, I can add a caption right here. So call this slow night, and this is like the fast whatever. I don't know if I want to do a caption. Let me make a board for each one of these, or maybe a column for each one, and then they'll turn them into boards. I'll make a column for the night. Take this over here, and I want to just give him a little bit of a description. So for the note here, I'll say that he's actually let's do a to-do list. I'll go with the note. Say he's fast or slow moving, high health, high damage. And then this guy is going to be somewhat similar. Let's copy this element. Let's see. I think I'm gonna right click and duplicate. Oh, I got the whole night one. That's fine. Take this, drag that over, delete the night. Let's call this the RAM. I don't know. And he's gonna be fast. Low health. And I don't know. I guess he'd be low damage, right? Well, maybe I need a third character in here to really have some variety. So I'll figure out a third one in a little bit. Let me kind of get an idea of how I want to design these. Maybe I'll have a stationary guy that's high damage and low health that kind of stands back and shoots from far away or something. I think, yeah, let me do that. I'm going to duplicate this and we'll call this stationary guy. So here, let's drag over a little bit. And I don't have a picture for him yet, so I'm just going to delete that. This will be stationary, high health, high damage. Or do it, yeah, yeah, let's do it like that. Well, I'll figure out a character for that in a little bit. Maybe it'll be like a more of like a turret thing or some other thing that's like on the ground or built into the environment, not necessarily. And it could be like a plant that shoots out magic missiles or something. Let's add a couple notes here. So I'm gonna add this as a to-do list idea. So plant shooting missiles, a turret, wizard that kind of like sits still. I'm just gonna add this as my ideas for what this stationary guy could be. We could come up with more things, but I keep going through and just figure out what else we got here. So got my knight, my ram, and my stationary dude. And now you can see like the enemies are actually kind of starting to get big. It's almost to the point where I'd want to put them onto their own board, but I don't think I'm quite ready yet. I'm gonna go on to mark off characters. Um, let's build up the player character board first a little bit, or the player character column first. Duplicate this one. I don't need that whole thing. I just wanted a note. Let's just delete this. I'll take a note, drop it in here. This guy is fast moving. Shoots arrows by default. So where like at the mouse cursor. I think so. So wherever your mouse cursor is, she'll shoot the arrows. Or controller if I do multiplayer. So if I go with multiplayer, I'm thinking that she'll shoot wherever like your secondary thumbstick is. Oh, Windows popped up. Thought it was something with the control. I think it'll shoot like whatever direction that thing is aiming. Otherwise, if it's single player, we'll just go in the direction of the mouse. So well, actually, let's add that controller or mouse input. I'm gonna add that as a question mark because for this, ideally in the game, I'd like to have both, right? But for a YouTube video, I'd probably limit it to one or the other. I'm thinking probably the mouse one first. All right, so let's continue on. We've got the player. Yeah, I think character is kind of done, and now a development plan. And this is, I think, where it's going to start getting a little bit different and a little bit interesting, at least for me. So now I want to think through the different mechanics of the game, how they're all going to tie together, and how I'm going to build them. Like what the order is going to be, what that's going to look like. I'm going to start by just doing it kind of down here on the bottom area, and then I'll turn it into its own board that we can drill into. Or maybe I'll take some of these pieces, turn them into the children, and then we'll go from there. So the first thing is, well, the first thing I always like to do when I'm building a game is get a player character in there, just kind of moving around, right? And by the way, for anybody who's curious, we are going to do some more stuff. I want to go through just designing a game that I've already got an idea for, and then after that, I want to go through with everybody on chat and just design something else too. So this was, I already kind of had a plan here or a loose idea of what I want to build. So I want to build that out, and then we'll go through and just build some more with other ideas that people come up with. I just didn't want to leave it too strict or too hard on everybody to come up with things and be stuck with that. There's a link for the actual board that I'm working on down in the description below too, so you can actually look, watch, and just I think you can just click and follow along and see the live changes happening. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. All right, so let's go through development plan. So the first thing I want to do is have some movement. So I need player movement. Movement. Let's call it player movement. We got player movement. I like how it does the little icons automatically. So it kind of like detects something movie related or move related and just picks one. I think it like does a keyword search and then just picks something at random, but pretty cool either way. We have the player movement system, which is going to be top down. So let's go into it. So player movement is going to be a board here. Let's add a note. Actually, let's add a to-do list. So it'll be WASD movement. What else? Do we have anything else? So WASD, speed. I don't know if I want the speed to stay the same or not. It needs to stick to nav mesh. I think what I want to do is nav mesh based WASD movement. So we'll use a nav mesh so we can just generate a mesh for the terrain and have the NPCs following us around and not get to anywhere that we can't go to. So I'll add that in that we're going to have a player movement system as WASD sticks to movement. Aims with mouse for now. Not really movement, but I mean sometimes like if we're implementing the WASD system, we want to remember that we're not doing the aim. We're not turning towards that. We're going to aim towards the mouse so we can walk backwards, forwards, or whatever. That means our animator needs to handle that. Sidestepping and moving in any direction. Handles movement in all directions, or handles of walking in all directions. And then I think I want to have sprinting. That works. Maybe, oh, do I have sprinting in there? Maybe have it go faster if you're no, I think I'll leave that out. I was thinking maybe go faster if you're running forward, but I think I'm gonna skip on that because it seems a little bit overcomplicated for, what I'm shooting for here. So that's my kind of basic player movement system. Next up, we'll have some let's see. I've got players moving around. What would I want to put in next? I've got a simple environment or world building, so I guess that's part of the navigation though. So let's do that first. So let's add in a new board here and we'll call this environment. Let's see. World building. There we go. That'll work. I spelled environment wrong. So I'll start with world building, then go on to player movement. I'm going to add in a line here to just show the order that I want to do them in. So you just drag a line up. Bam. Now I'm going from world building. Then I'll do player movement. Next up, I think I want to do NPCs. So I like to have the NPCs kind of coming at me so I have something to actually shoot at before I'm shooting things. So let's do that. So say NPCs and it just put in NPCs. Let's call this, let's actually go back. I'm going to delete this board or no, I'm going to just click on it and rename it. I'll rename it to enemies and then I'm going to click on it and choose a new icon. So go to the icon here. I'll search for enemies. And then, oh, well, they got like the little Minecrafty dude. Let's go for that. All right, I guess is that what is that? I'm not sure. It looked like a Minecraft guy from far away. Now I don't know what that's exactly, but looks cool. And then so I'm thinking I would do player movement. Then we'll do enemies. Enemies have a couple things. Let's see. What do they got? They got movement, have mesh, follow player. That's basically all they need to do, right? Is turn on their agent and run to the player so that we could kill. And let's see. And we need a little bit of a world at least so that we can follow the player, right? So that we can build this nav mesh out. I see a little bit of chat about build world building first. We don't need to build out the whole world, but we need to have at least a playable area where we can kind of get an idea of how things are working. It doesn't I would not build out a perfect world at first. So just build out a playable area with a little bit of terrain. In fact, we probably should have detailed that. I can go back to it in a minute. Let's see what else we need for enemies though. So for the enemies, we want them to move by following the nav mesh, attack when in range. That also means that players need health. So I need some sort of a player health setup. Say player health. And I'm going to move that up to game design and over here. So we're going to add in player health. Let's see, where do I want to do that? Right around the enemy time. So I think maybe I'll do it. We'll generate enemies. Then we'll make enemies move. Then we'll make them attack. And then we'll make attacks deal damage. Here we go. Once attacks deal damage, then we deal with health, player health. Now, when you think about it, though, player health and enemy health should probably be the same thing. Maybe they will be different, but most likely they'll just be a health. So I might want to think about this as just health instead of player health. So I think I'll rename this instead of health to just be, let's call it character health, character slash entity health. So let's call it player slash enemy, but keep it a little bit more clear on exactly what it is. So after we've got the player movement system, we'll build up the enemies. Enemies can attack, and then we'll build up the player health system because players need to be able to die, and then we need to be able to make enemies die after that. So let's add in some more lines here. Oh, yeah, I'm going to add in my lines because I just like the way they look. So we'll add in a line just showing the order that I want to do these things in. Oops. There we go. One more line here from the player and enemy health and the enemy there. All right. So once I've got health done, I want some sort of way to kill my player. So put in a player death. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I want this to be multiple levels or one, so I'll probably just leave it at one level since it's going to be a tutorial video and a tutorial game, and I won't go into a level management system. So I was thinking, a lot of the time, one of the things I would want to do here is go straight from like player death to either like a level management to kick you back to whatever the right level is or the right part of your level, or maybe to like the main menu or something else like that. But I think since this is going to be again a more of a beginner game, a tutorial for beginners. I just can you reload and restart the game when they die. So they just kind of kick off. Or no, I lied. I want to. Well, let me think, because I do want to have a high score. Yeah, I can still reload it without going through a whole process for a high score. I think that'll work. So we've got player death here. Once the players can die and the health is working, then we'll add in enemy death. So let's yeah, drag in another board. That'll be my enemies dying, because this is kind of like a whole thing, right? Enemies death isn't the same as player death. In fact, it's surprisingly, I'd say, quite a bit more complicated. You think about like when a player dies in this scenario. Again, this is very specifically in this video scenario or this game scenario. We're doing a simple one for new developers. But if the game is just reloading on player death, that's pretty easy versus enemy death, where you want to have them play a death animation, lay down for a while, maybe have their bodies fade or disappear, maybe doing some sort of a particle system or something else, and adding points. So I'm going to add in all of those things. So let's go drop in my line here between these two. And I want to start filling out these boards a little bit. In fact, I just blabbed a lot about enemy death. So let's go fill in the things I was talking about. So need to play death animations. Need to clean up corpses with a fade or poof, something to get rid of corpses so that they don't just lay around forever. I mean, we might not need to. Maybe we leave the corpses around. Maybe we're like, hey, this game, one of the features is we just leave around all the corpses. I don't know if it's as good, but let's see what else we got. Um, Cleaning up corpses when they die. Oh, adding points, adding score. All right, so let's go back over here, and I think I want to take my enemies now and start turning them into boards. Put them into my enemy section, and then start actually creating like actual enemy cards that detail them. So I'm gonna take the ram dude first, drag it into enemies. The knight, I'm gonna just drag all three of these into here, and I want to go in just so I can play with some of the other board types for a minute. So I'm gonna take these three, drag them out here, and then I think what I'll do is make some boards. So I'll make a new board here for the knight. Um, we'll duplicate this element right here, drag it. Oh, do I want to drag it in there? No, I think I'm going to go in here and delete that. And let's use a template. I'm going to go to more templates and go for like let's see, where's game design? Game design. Let's go for like maybe a character profile one. I think these ones kind of look cool. It's probably a little bit of overkill and more than I'll use, but I'm gonna go for it anyway. Let's say we'll do that. I'll keep the example stuff here. Oh, I just can't see that. Let me make sure you can see. I just checked the character profile and checked keep example content. There we go. Click it, and I've got my board here. So now I want to go back up to the night board, drag the picture in, and then kind of replace it. There we go. So I've got my new knight in there. I don't have a sketch for him, so I'll just delete that. Let's say I don't. Oh, is there a physical description? I'm not doing any art for him, so I'm just gonna put kind of the details about these characters here. So he's slow moving, high health, and high damage. But I want to put it down into here. Let's go there. Control Z, Control Z. What have I done? Okay. So his name will be Bad Guy Knight. And he doesn't have any parents, and he looks like a human to me, and he attacks people. I don't think I need a family tree, but kind of crazy. I mean, people put all kinds of details into game and stuff, right? I am not gonna go that deep at all. So gameplay. I'm just gonna put the mechanics of how he works. So he'll spawn off screen and walk fast or run to the player. attacks with sword when in range. Um, Fairly stupid NPC. Seems like a good amount of detail. Let's split that up. That's pretty much all I need. I don't need a background, and I probably don't need this description. You can see you get the options to kind of detail out a whole ton of stuff. Now I'm gonna delete this section here, I think. Let's see. Okay, I just select it all and hit backspace a couple times. And then I think I want to just duplicate my night board here. So I'll duplicate it. We'll call this RAM. Whoops. So used to hitting F2. Click, click. There we go. RAM. And we'll pick a new picture. Let's search for a RAM picture. My RAM bad guy. Oh, RAM. Maybe I'll search for like a bull. Something. Oh, I guys got slightly. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work as a picture. And then we'll take the picture, drag it in, and replace. And then this guy is bad guy. I'll call him Fast Rammer because I'm great at naming things. His parents are goats, and his species unknown. Fast runner. So this guy, I'm thinking would just run really fast, but not be able to turn quick. So I think they're all going to kind of spawn off screen. So I'll say that he runs fast, head down towards player, turns slowly, and can miss the player. Or let's say turns slowly, so the player can dodge if they're good. And then when it hits, it'll just do I was thinking maybe it'll do a knockback or something. Let's say. Maybe add a knockback on hit. So that like you ram into it and goes flying back or something. I don't know. Or maybe it just take a lot of damage to see how far it goes. But I think like a knockback or something that kind of pushes you up or stuns you or something. Let's say knockback or stun. Something like that, like an effect that you get hit by it. So maybe he's lower damage and let's say maybe lower damage and add a knockback. So just kind of brainstorming and thinking through my notes for this thing. One of the things I like about it is like while I'm designing this character now, like I've got an actual spot for the notes for this character. Like I'll remember later because if I just write this down in some sheet somewhere, I'm gonna lose it. I'm not gonna associate it so well with the character. So being able to associate it makes a big difference for me. It's kind of nice. Let's see. The last one was the stationary dude. So I'm gonna duplicate the RAM board. Oh, I didn't want to duplicate the column. Duplicate the RAM board. Let's see. Duplicate. There we go. And let's name this new one stationary. Again, I still don't really have a plan for this guy, so I'm going to take this column, drag it in here, and see what we can figure out. So I don't have a picture. I'll just delete that. This is like a trap slash turret, and I don't know what I want to do for these. I don't know that a turret has parents, so or an occupation. Yeah, so I'm just going to leave it kind of blank here until I can figure out what I want this to be. But I know for the gameplay, I want it to be stationary. It doesn't move and deals large projectile damage. And then I've got the ideas over there for what it could be. So let's take this over here. And that there, let's see, stationary. Yeah, I'm actually just gonna take both of those over there, drag that, delete it, and go back up level. All right. So now I've got my ideas for my enemies or my three main enemies. In fact, I could probably pull this up. Let's say enemies. I'm gonna duplicate this board or that card right there, and I'm gonna drag it up to my game design one here and have it here as well. So now I can go look at my enemies board down here in the list, or I can just see it all up here as well. I think having it in both places is going to be pretty handy, so I can get a quick view of it. All right, what do I want to do next? So I've got my enemies kind of figured out, and then I've got my player and enemy health system kind of figured out. So let's figure out. Actually, you know what? Let's open up a drink I'm gonna take a quick peek at chat, see what's going on in there, and then figure out if I want to dive more into the design part or some of start with a little bit of the architecture part too of how I actually want to put this together. So kind of got the idea of the plan for the order of stuff. You know, let's just add a line down here. You can kind of see like the breaking point of where we're doing the order. So let's change that to dashed, and I think I can just take a note, add it down here, and this is the development plan. That's what we're working on down here at the bottom, kind of the plan for the order of development of the way that I'll do things. So I'm gonna drag that around and get this just oops, get this all just moved down just a little bit more so you can see it better. Let's center wait, I think I can center that and make it kind of big, like so it's like a heading. And I believe I can just hide the background. You choose is it one of these that removes the background. Oh, make transparent. There, a development plan will just be this lower part here. All right, now that I've said all that, I'll actually open up my drink and take a peek. Oh, is the stream limited to 720 right now? I wonder if that's because I'm using a restream on here and it's cutting it down to 720. Sorry about that. If that's the case, I'll have to fix it for the next one, but I'll upload it as a 1080 later. Oh, that's good. It feels so thirsty. All the talking makes me really thirsty. All right. Oh, a dragon for the stationary character. I kinda like that idea. Let me see if we can find a character on there that's a dragon. Let's see, do they have a dragon on Mixamo? Probably not. I bet I could find a free dragon. I'm gonna look on the asset store and see if there's a good free dragon real quick. And then if I can find one, let's see, we'll go to 3D. Here, let's just bring the screen over so everyone can see it. So Dragon, the Soul Eater? What? Okay. Yeah, I mean, that is cool. Did he shoot fire? Because if there's one that shoots fire that's free, that'd be perfect. This guy looks cool, but I don't think he has a fire breathing animation. Is this a dragon robot? That's cool, but definitely not stationary. I need to find something more, I think, typical dragony. You know, the kind where it sits back and just shoots things. Evil Hide Poly Dragon Pack. God, these look so cool. It's amazing what you can get for free now. It just blows my mind. May I use like one of these? Actually, I think this is actually a good set. I think I'll consider using this set for the thing. So let me use this as my concept. So I'm gonna right click. Watch this. So copy image, and I go back to Millinote real quick. Go back to my game design board, and we'll go into the stationery and paste. Bam! I'm gonna get my picture right here. I love that feature. My favorite thing. Oh, what? Why did it minimize? There we go. So this would be like my inspiration for my dragon or my characters for my dragon. In fact, let me get the link to it too. So I'm gonna copy the link here and just paste it over here so that way I know where it is. There we go. Got a link. Oh, I didn't know it would do that. It dropped a link in and it just made it an actual a link for the thing. That's pretty cool. Hey, some new stuff. All right. Benefit of doing things live, right? So I think that'll be my new character. Let's rename it from stationary to dragon. Actually, I think I'll name it Stationary Dragon so that it's very obvious what it is. Now, we're going to here. Let's see. Oh, so right here, let's take a look at this. We've got an issue here. So these cards, oh, I see what I've done here. I made a mistake. So in this enemies board, I've got these three cards here, or these three boards that are all children of this enemies one. But I don't actually want to have new versions of these boards here. I want to have these same boards be referenced of those. So I'm going to take my stationary dragon, drag it into enemies, drop it up here, and I'm going to delete this stationary one first. Then I'm going to right click on it. Watch this. I do create shortcut. I take my shortcut, go up a level, and I'm going to drag it in here. Because this is what I was looking at for here. For some reason, I duplicated the whole thing instead of just making shortcuts, which I think was really what I was shooting for. So I'm gonna delete out the night one here and the ram, go back into enemies, and I'm just gonna make shortcuts for both of those. So do create a shortcut and create a shortcut, and then drag them up a level and over, and then one more up a level and over. That way I've got the same boards here, and if I make a change, the reason for that is like if I make a change to the stationary dragon one here, like I move this around, I don't want it to be a different board than the one here and have it be in a different spot, right? I want it to be the same board. It shouldn't reference two things. I'd accidentally duplicated, and I just meant to like add a link or a reference to it. So okay, I've got my enemies figured out. Thanks for the recommendation for the dragon, by the way. I should have called out who it was in chat. It was somebody in chat mentioned it, and thank you. It was a great idea. I think it'll work good because then we just have different dragons as like bosses or something that sit back and shoot fire, and you can dodge it and shoot back at them. Kind of an interesting but not too difficult boss to make. All right, so we've got enemies figured out. We got player movement figured out. Enemy health, player death, enemy death, and somewhere along the line, I want to do UI elements. So I'm going to drag that in here too. So UI. Now the reason that, oh, sorry, excuse me. The reason I want UI is that I'm going to have player health and I'm going to have score. And I'm thinking that perhaps the UI stuff comes before the death. So as health exists, I'll set up the UI system, link that all together, and then set up my player death system. So that's what I'm thinking. I'll take this line right here, drag it over to UI. I'm gonna move these two guys over here a bit, drag the UI down, and just kind of drag out my next line to figure out my kind of next step. All right. So I think that's get that kind of lined up, get a little bit weird and perfectionisty, trying to get these things all arranged for no real particular reason. Let's get rid of the end marker there too. All right, so we got world building, movement, enemies. Oh, I need weapons and shooting and combat. So let's add that too. So we need let's say this is going to be player combat. Let's say player bow, because that's one system, right? The player bow system, and then I want the player magic too, or yeah, I'm gonna call it player magic because it's player specific magic stuff. So I'm gonna have the bow. I think hmm, maybe right after I'll do the UI stuff, so player health can go down. UI can show my health go. No, you want to do that? Yes, I think so. And then I'll let myself die, and then I'll give myself a way to fight back. Make it interesting, right? So I'll take this, we'll go to the bow, drag it right to about there, get in another line, just again ordering up my things. So we'll go player death, so player can die, and then I'll say, hey, okay, now it's time to be able to fight back. So we'll set up our bow and arrow system to actually begin combat back. We'll deal with enemy death, and then we'll add in magic powers as kind of like the final thing. So it'd be like a secondary attack, essentially. So let's go dig into that. I'm just gonna go into player magic and just add in a note. This is a secondary attack. I don't know what it's gonna look like yet. Probably AoE or something. I don't know. We'll figure out some sort of a magic that we can get. Oh, and I did say, let's see, let's cover all these things. Did we check them all? So we got archery in there. That's player bow. Actually, let's go dive into the details on the bow real quick. So the bow will auto fire in player's direction or player's forward direction. Arrows are projectiles, prefabs that hit enemies. Let's see what else we got here. So we're going to shoot off some arrows. They'll hit enemies. We'll have particles on impact. And we need a bow shooting animation. Fast one too, because we're going to be shooting really, really quick. And what else do we need? So particles, bow shooting. I think unlimited ammo. I'll just note that here. And I don't think there's anything else we need for that. Or that's basically it. So it'll spawn off arrows, shoot them off, and fire them off. So let's add some technical notes about how I'm going to set up the bow too. So we'll spawn a prefab in a pool. So spawn, or let's say use pooled prefab or arrow. Um, Arrows will just go straight, right? So here, let's add a title. This is arrows, arrow details, arrow slash projectile. We'll probably use some sort of a line renderer or trail renderer, trail renderer, um, for the effects, or maybe some particles. I don't know. I'm gonna add in both, just see what we end up deciding to go with. Outside of that, anything else? Oh, they're blocked by walls and obstacles. So if you can't obviously shoot through a wall or something else, right? Okay, that seems good. So that gives me a quick idea of the way that the bow works, and some notes on there and how to implement it, and then I can dive into the details of how I'm going to do that in a minute. What else do we want to do here? Fill out some more of these boards. I want to go add in a note here on the world building. Simple level with a few walls and hills. Do I even want walls? Yeah, I do. I want walls, and I want some hills in it, so they can block things and kind of dodge. Add random props to block arrows and paths. That's all I need for my world building. I want to have some level of info there, but not too deep in there, because I think the world building is going to come down to whatever the person wants to actually make. It's not really gonna be my world, and I'm a terrible world builder and, like, level designer, I think. Alright, so we've got archery done. Magic we don't have done, but I'm gonna delay that for later because 'cause I'm not really ready for it. Top-down movement, so that's our player movement system. WASD, stick nav mesh, aims with mouse, handles walking in all directions. Got that kind of loosely defined. So this is like, I want to make sure I've got these all loosely defined. Then we'll dive into deeper definitions for them. Health system for player, got that kind of covered. So let's go. I'll just check them off as we go through. Health system, got that. Health pickups, did not add that. I'm thinking maybe, let's add it in here. Maybe I will do it. Maybe I won't. I'm not sure. Health pickup. That's the thing that I'm not 100% sure I want to do, but I probably will. So this will be a board. Let's see, what would we do for a health pickup system? Has some prefab with an icon, or with a model you walk through, like a plus, gives health when you enter trigger. It's very simple. So yeah, I should do it because it's such a simple thing to add. That I think it makes sense. And let's make it like spin in place. Spins in place. So yeah, I think it's an easy enough thing to add to the game that it will make sense for the type of player there. Let's go back up a level and get another quick view. So anybody that's trying to keep up, by the way, there's a link to the board in the description, so you can actually go through and see all of the details of what we've come up with so far this morning, and then all the other stuff that comes as we just keep going along. So you can just look through the board, and you should be able to just, I think, watch and see as I make changes, and then make your own and stuff. So okay, what else do we have here? So health pickup done. Health UI. Let's see. What's the health UI gonna look like? I think I want to add in that it's a health bar across the top. No, no, let's go and do a health bar. Let's do health hearts across the bottom. That works. So it'd just be hearts on the bottom, or maybe the top or the bottom. So, and I'm thinking maybe 5 health slash hits. Big hits count as 2, something like that. Yeah. Oh, here, let's put that into 2 lines. There's no reason for that to be 1. 5 health. Big hits count as 2 damage, and small hits are 1. So notes are pretty beautiful there, but you can get an idea now of what it's going to look like. Well, I guess that's not really health UI related. Um, so maybe these two things don't actually fit here. So let's move those out. Those really belong in my health system, right? So small hits are 1 damage. And then let's go back in here. Big hits count as 2. That doesn't belong in my UI. That definitely some kind of note for over here. So the health system. Let's say we'll have a default player health of 5. Enemies. What should, and yeah, I guess. I don't know what the player weapon damage should be. Hmm. I'm thinking maybe the NPC health is 1 to 3. So 1, 2, or 3 based on the type of NPC. Well, no, I don't know. I might want more than that because I don't know if you're shooting. Oh, I guess if I don't shoot arrows too fast, that's that 1, 2, or 3. So it'll be 1, 2, or 3, and the arrow shoots for 1. Okay. So there we go. That's kind of like damage to players versus damage to NPCs. For enemies, Nemies, and then let's just duplicate players. That over here. Delete, delete. So I kind of want to split it off for like what the player's doing, and when the enemy is dealing damage. So there we go. I can kind of separate out the little bit of data there. So for enemies dealing damage, I care that the player's default health is 5, and they hit for either 1 or 2 damage, depending on the type of NPC. And then when players are dealing damage, the NPC health is going to be 1, 2, or 3 for this game, and the arrows will always do 1 damage. Unsure what damage magic will do, if any. So I'm gonna add magic, but yeah, we'll add in something that maybe does damage, maybe does something else. Not 100% sure on that. All right, so where are we at now? We've got world building, movement, player system. The death, I think like here I'll add a note. Reload the game and save high score. I mean, technically, we want to do those in the other order, but yeah, that's pretty much it. We're going to reload and save high score. Here, let's save high score. We'll fix the order. And reload game. Perfect. Oh, that means I also need a high score system. Look at this. See, as I add notes, start to realize I need a couple more things. So high score. Actually, you know what? That could go into the scoring system. Oh, I didn't add that. The scoring system. We'll add in scoring on enemy after enemy death. Here, let's kind of rearrange this a little bit. I'm gonna drag these over, make some more room, and I think eventually what I want to do is get these into their own board. Just got a board of my flow that I want to go through. Rearrange. Enemy death. So how's everybody doing out there, by the way? I see a lot of chat about just programming languages and game development in general. But it's really hard to read chat and talk and stay on topic at the same time. So trying not to get too distracting. But yeah, if anybody's got anything interesting going on. So let's see. We're gonna take these two over here. I'm gonna take the death. After death, we'll add in scoring, and then after scoring, I think that's when we dive into like magic systems and health pickups and stuff. Those are kind of like more add-on type features. I think like magic is somewhat of a core feature, maybe, but the health pickup is definitely an add-on feature. So okay, let's see. What do we got here? Scoring system. So scoring system will keep track of high scores. Add points for each NPC killed, and keep track of high score with player refs. Pretty simple. Oh, and it will update the UI. Fire event to update UI with current score. And that'll kind of dive us back into some UI development. So when I do the scoring system, I'll kind of jump back to UI for a minute. So let's just add another line there to kind of denote that. That's my plan at least. Take that, drag it down a little, and bam, there we go. So I'm gonna do scoring, and when I do scoring, I'm gonna do a little bit of a jump back to UI. Um, and then from there, actually, I'll probably go on to the player magic. So let's take the magic one, drag that over here. Let's drag this down a bit and connect it up. Bam, like that. So we're gonna go UI, player death, bow, enemy death, scoring system, back to UI, then over to magic and health. That's kind of my thought of how I want to develop. And this is, I mean, really kind of how I plan out my development. Normally, what I used to do a long time ago, or not even that long ago, was do it on in notebooks. I'd grab like a just a physical notebook. I'm gonna blab for half a second. Let me see. No, not that view. Anyway, so yeah, I'd grab like a physical notebook and I'd just start writing it out, right? Like write out things that I wanted to do, all of the systems, the plans for them, and little notes next to them, right? And then what I would do is rearrange them and rewrite them constantly as I made changes and wanted to rearrange them and just kind of update them. So now it's oh yeah, you know what? That's a good idea. Somebody said I should make a shortcut for the UI. I'm gonna do that. So yeah, what I found is like this system here, or just using Trello or something else, any type of management system that you can just kind of get around with, and do this kind of stuff with, it'll make a big difference. So just to make it easier, at least for me, doing it on paper is good because I can just do it in bed. I can write in my notes and do it wherever I want. But getting it onto something where I can actually share it, and view it and rearrange and stuff is really cool. And like I said, this has been like my new weird nerd obsession for like the last month, like which feels so strange, like getting all weird and nerdy about a development tool. But anyway, I'm gonna make that change because I like that idea of making this UI one actually a shortcut instead. So I'm gonna get rid of my two lines here because I don't really know how to. Oh, undo, delete and delete. I'm gonna create a shortcut to that UI board. Look at that. That was brilliant idea. Thank you so much for the smart thinking. And we'll go right back into here. I'll take the line, drag it, bam, and bam. And then do one more line to kind of wrap up UI and player magic. So now, I mean, I think I've kind of got like an idea of the actual flow of things. Um, and I want to dive into how I would actually start setting some of these up real quick. And then I want to, after that, just kind of chat with everybody real quick about maybe doing another design of just a different type of game, like how we kind of figure that out and go through that process. Also, tomorrow I'm going to do a stream with a friend of mine who's like a veteran game designer, worked on a bunch of games and knows a ridiculous amount more about game design than just about anyone I know. Way more than me. So if you're interested in more design stuff, just make sure that you're like subscribed and alerted and all that stuff. And just around tomorrow morning, I think it'll be, I forget what time we set it for, 8 or 9 Pacific tomorrow morning, so, a little less than 24 hours from whenever this is happening, or if you're watching this not live, just make sure you're, yeah, subscribed and all that stuff. Okay, so health UI, check. Scoring system, check. Supports a variety of terrain, check. I've kinda mentioned they're using nav meshes and everything, so we're good, and magic, check. Alright, so that's kind of the high level development plan, and now I would say that I'm ready to start kind of planning out my actual code, how I wanna build things. Now, of course, you don't have like, you're building out your own games, you don't have to build out a whole plan like this, but I find that, like, obviously, that wasn't very difficult, and that was kind of on the fly, somewhat impromptu, just while we're streaming, and it only took an hour going through it. So you can obviously just spend a day or two building out your full development plan for whatever the game is you want to do, or at least a start of a full development plan, a version one of it, and then kind of improve on that and kind of go from there. Of what I would highly recommend doing. So I'm gonna take my plan now though and just go on to kind of the next phase. So the next phase for me would include, normally it would include a little bit of code and a little bit of planning, but I'm gonna just do the planning part and ignore the coding part so that we're not actually going through and building out this entire game right now. I mean, we could do it, but I told my wife I was not going to be live streaming for like 8 hours today. So That's probably not going to happen today, but when we go through when we do the full video and stuff, kind of go through that process, I think. All right, so what do we do? Well, let's go into player world building. There's really not much to do, right? So for world building, I'm just going to have a terrain there. There's not much to think about code wise and architecture wise. Player movement, though, we're actually going to have some things. So our player movement system is going to need, I guess, a couple parts. Let's talk about what the code parts of moving a player around are going to be. So we'll take this over here. The first part is input handling. So I need to handle input from the keyboard and mouse. So that'll be something that'll either be a separate class or maybe it'll be just the single class for player movement I'm thinking, well, first let's list out the different types of things we need to do. We need player movement, we need aiming to mouse, and we need animation. And we need the animation to we need the animation to be 2D, and we need it. I think we want to do 2D freeform, or is it Cartesian? One of the two. I always get them mixed up when I'm thinking about them without actually looking at it. But we need to use one of the 2D animators so that we have like a horizontal and a vertical to handle like sidestepping and all that. So 2D freeform. I'll add a note to handle strafing and walking backward. So we're gonna kind of like walk. If you're doing a top-down game, you got to be able to go in any direction. Hmm. Let me think. Is there anything else? Oh, hold on. To add a timeout. Yeah. So don't just spam. I'm not reading chat, so if you're just spamming it, you're just irritating everybody else. Like, it's not. I mean, I'm reading chat loosely, but I'm not constantly reading it and answering things like there. So okay, let's go back to stuff. So player movement. We'll handle input. We'll aim the mouse and kind of handle animation. But I feel like animation would be a separate class. So let's set this up as a class. Let's call this the player movement.cs. It's going to handle input and aim to the mouse and set nav mesh destination. That's my thought. Or do I want to do a nav mesh movement, or do I want to do moving movement, like where I actually move the character? Ooh, that's tough. Hmm. You know, I'm not gonna do. I'm not. I think I will not use nav meshes for the player. So what I'm thinking now is that instead of because I have two options here. For setting up my player, I could either give them a destination on the nav mesh and have the agent move them, steer them, and get them to the position, which will work great for my NPCs. But as I think about it with my players, I want to be able to like strafe and move backwards and stuff. And the nav mesh agent by itself like spins you around and turns you and does all kinds of stuff that I don't really want to do. So we're not going to do a nav mesh agent for the player. So no nav mesh agent for player. We can add a nav mesh check though for moving. So what we can do is just make sure that the position that they want to move to is actually on the nav mesh. But I'm going to mark that as optional because that's really just kind of a bug fix for they've made a game where there are areas that you can walk to that the NPC can't walk to. So that's kind of a fix around the level design part. And since it's going to be an intro-y video, I'll probably leave that out. So I'm going to mark that as an optional thing. So really it's just handling input and aiming to the mouse, right? So I'm going to move these two little notes over here because they're not part of the player movement. And I'm going to move the animation part over here because this is really its own class. So let's call this player animator. In fact, since this is going to be a beginner video, I'm somewhat inclined to combine these two together. Normally, I would think they're probably going to grow, expand and stuff, but as a beginner video, I may very well want to just combine these. So I'm going to add in a comment here for a note for myself. Consider combining these classes given the context of the game as a beginner video. But this just adds a note for myself and I guess anybody else watching the board, that I probably consider combining those 2 into just a player movement. But, whenever I see animation, I feel this strong desire to split it apart. So, we'll see. For now, though, I'm gonna just mark it as, 2 separate classes and then think about how I wanna tie it all together. So these will just sit on the player, right? So the player is going to have a player movement and a player animator, or maybe just a player movement. What else do we have here? Enemies? Let's go into enemies. We've got our 3 enemies defined. Enemies, how are they gonna be set up code-wise? Well, they'll have a nav mesh agent. Let's go back into the player real quick. There's a player board. We've got my 2 classes here. Let's do something similar for the enemy. So I'll make an enemy class, I think, that will have their, let's see, what's it gonna have? Their attack damage. Maybe not. Okay, let's think this through. So enemies have health, right? So they'll have a health on them, health.cs. It can take damage, have a max health, and we'll say this is health.cs, and it applies to player and enemy. Now, maybe I want to split the health because the player health is actually bound up to a UI element. But I feel like that's probably a bad habit to show people, like to split them out. Because most of the time, I would recommend that there's just a single health class and that we architect it well enough that there's no reason to have 2 health. So I think I want to leave it at 1. It works for both. We have a max health, take some damage, fires an event when we take damage. Um, the events could trigger things like particles. They could trigger UI updates. Whatever other stuff, right? I don't know if there's going to be anything else, but those are the 2 key things. I could have an on damage or on tick damage. I'm just going to add that. So we'll have a health CS that's going to have that. I'm thinking that this actually doesn't belong in enemies either, though. So I'll take it and drag it up to game design. Go to the health system, player/enemy health. There we go. And drop it right in here. Then I'll just go back up. I'm actually going to take this, create a shortcut to the health board, and drag it into enemies because I feel like it's just such a key part of the enemies. Then I'll make a column here. And I'm going to take these notes and this board and just start to make a list of like related boards. So key features. So they'll have player/enemy health, which will have a health CS, some details about how the enemies take damage and stuff. Seems good. What else do I want to do? Oh yeah, sound effects are another one that could fire off on that health took damage or something, or like some flashes or something. Screen effects. Do you recommend post processing or custom scripts? I'm not sure. It depends on the game and stuff, and I don't have great advice without digging in. So I'm gonna try to minimize answering questions that I don't have good answers to like that. Sorry. Where are we at now? Let's go back up to my enemies. So enemies, what else are they gonna have? They've got health, which is kind of part of the next system. They need a nav mesh agent, so it's got a nav mesh agent component on it. I guess I have that right here. Then it needs some sort of attack system. So I'm thinking since I've got multiple different types of attackers, let's see. The ram, what does he do? He runs in head first and he does not have a special attack, right? So he'll do like his attack on collision enter. Um, so how do I want to deal with that? So each has their own attack system. I think that's actually kind of true. So the stationary dragon fires a projectiles or fires projectiles. Let's just add a little note here. So fires projectiles. Ram does damage by collision. And the knight actually swings a sword. So this would do like you'll swing a sword, do a range check. If you're still in range, you take the damage. The dragon would aim towards you and just shoot off a fireball, right? That's something. Let's say fire protection stuff. Fireball. There we go. And then the ram guy just kind of runs at you, and if he hits you, you take damage. That's what I was thinking. So we're gonna note all of those and how we're gonna code those up. So for the knight, I would code up a probably just a melee attack.cs is what I'm thinking. So let's go add that in here. Melee. Oh wait, wrong thing. That's not what I wanted. You know what I should do is take the note right there and turn this into the list. So add here. Say this is melee attack.cs. A swing sword to do damage with range check. Whatever variable cooldown. Right, a script is like a serialized field cooldown. So it's serialized field for cooldown. And the damage is going to be 1 all the time, but whatever, you get the idea. I think that makes sense. So the stationary dragon. Let's see. He is going to. This will be the. Let's call it a projectile attack.cs. Fires off projectiles. As a projectile prefab reference and a cooldown, and that's it. I guess that they're all gonna. Oh, both of these have a cooldown, so let's just copy that. Also has a cooldown. And then the ram, he'll just do damage by. I think this would just be ram attack.cs. So it does damage by collision. Has some cooldown on re-triggering, maybe, or maybe after he hits you, he'll just die. He headbutts you so hard that he ends up dying. And falls over and dies from the damage. But you shouldn't headbutt people. It's a bad idea. All right. Yeah, I think I'll use that. Oh, somebody's asking what engine I'm going to use. I'll use Unity when I'm building the actual game out for sure. And doing the tutorial, we'll go through the whole process of how to. My plan here really is design the game here, and then we'll do a full video on how you would build it. Right? So just go through step by step of the full design process, or kind of I guess a more detailed design process than a lot of the time than gets used a lot of the time. It's not super detailed. Like if you're a big company, you're going to build out a lot of design documentation, hopefully. But I want to get kind of just a starting point, so people have an idea of how to kind of put some stuff together and lay things out and plan out what they want to do, right? And that's kind of what we're doing here. And then we'll build the stuff in the next video that I do for this. And I think again tomorrow, if you're not already subscribed and alerted and all that stuff, make sure that you are, because tomorrow I'm gonna have some friends on, and we'll go over hopefully some of this and some other things, talk about game design and a lot of other things. All right, so I've lost my place again. Oh, UI develop. Well, let's see. Player slash enemy health. Enemies. I think I've got my 3 enemy classes done. I mean, that's gonna be it. I'll have a ram attack, a projectile attack, a melee attack. Oh, you know what? I need a so the ram, let me think. He's just going to turn, he's going to run towards the player, set the player as his destination, and go straight forward. Doesn't do anything. The projectile attack is just going to stand there, shoot. That doesn't need anything. The melee attack, the knight one, this guy also needs to set his destination to the player. This is going to handle nav mesh too. So I think my melee attack for the knight is going to handle nav mesh movement too, and so will the ram. I don't necessarily like that, but I think that they're both going to be very independent the way that they work. The knight is going to walk up to the front, stop, and then turn his agent kind of on and off, where the ram is just going to leave it on and run straight at the player, and just try his best, right? So that's, and I think it's never going to turn off. It's just going to be setting the destination constantly. So yeah, I think those make sense like that. Okay, let's go back up a level and let's take a look at our next section. So UI, what's the UI going to look like? Well, I know I want a health bar, right? Or a health icons, right? So let's say I have a health bar that shows up to X health parts or icons. I'll just call it 5. I don't need an X. I know what the number is. And this will be my health bar. CS. And it'll listen to player health.cs on health changed. That's the goal. So this thing is going to tie into the players on health changed event and then update the current health with whatever it is. So it'll just basically bind to the player's health. Um, it's essentially what we're gonna do. So let's say bind to player health. By doing that, by listening for that on health changed and setting its value. We'll talk about the binding. If you've never used binding stuff before, it's very simple. It's just listen for the event, update the text or whatever. That's what we're gonna do. One way binding there. All right, let's go up a level. Oh, UI elements. I lied. Let's not go up a level. We need to do one more thing. We need to duplicate this because I also wanted a high score. So let's call this score UI. Let's call this UI score and UI health bar. I want to just add UI as a prefix before them. I've got my UI score. This is going to show the current score or show the high score. So it's going to do just those two things. I want it to just keep track of them too. That's a tough one. I feel like I want to. Yeah, I do. I want to split this out. I'll do it the right way. So we'll use UI score. We'll have a high score, a current score, and it will bind to a score controller. So that'll be in the score system. Will have that score controller. So scoring system will have a scoring controller. It'll keep the score, and it will update high scores. So if we beat, whenever we get a new score, if we beat the high score, just update the high score, and then we'll send event whenever they change, or fire an event on score changed when score changes. Pretty simple. So that, I mean, the scoring controller. Let's see. It's going to be relatively simple, and it's going to listen to all enemy health hide events. So actually, let's call it. So listen to enemy or health on any died. That's what I'm thinking for enemies. So whenever any enemy dies, I guess whenever a thing dies, I want to send a message. Maybe it'll be maybe instead of health, I want to do a scoreable. Now let's do that. So I'll do a scoreable thing died. Yeah, I like that. So it'll listen for a scoreable type event or scoreable class. Let's go add that. Let's create that now. Sends event when the thing dies. This is the scoreable.cs. It has a serialized field, score value. So my thought here is add a component, a scoreable component. It has a value on it and just drop it onto the NPCs. It will listen for when the health of that thing dies. So it essentially listens for attached object death on health. So it'll say like, hey, whenever when this thing spawns up, register for its own health object. So it'll have its own health component on there. Register for that health died event, and then if that happens, fire off the score. We can that way we can limit the score to it'll only be once. It'll be somewhat we can define what things give score, and I could even add this onto other stuff so that it's so that other things can be scoreable that aren't necessarily enemies. If I want to put boxes out there that I can just shoot, I could have this thing listen to something else or listen to the health on a different thing. Anything that has health essentially would be able to give a score. In fact, one of the other options I could have, let me think about this because if I'm not going to add it to other things, let me add a note here because one of the things I'm thinking is perhaps this should be on health. Don't like the idea, but the context may make sense. So what I'm thinking here is that the scoreable thing makes a lot of sense if we're going to expand on it and extend it and kind of build out a bigger thing. But if it's too complicated at the beginner level, it might make sense for me to move the score value onto health, and then just whenever anything dies, then we do the score. It adds scores if it had a point value. So I think I'm gonna consider that too as a simpler option, since we probably won't extend. So I'm heavily leaning towards I'm gonna use like a health on any died instead and just add a score value, um, or something like that. Or yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to overcomplicate it for beginners, but I also don't want to, oversimplify it too. So we'll see. I've got some ideas there, and I've got notes of both of the things that I wanted to do, and kind of what my thinking was around it. If I One of the things that's kind of important too when you're writing notes for yourself, like write actual notes and write some context there. I don't know how many times I've written notes in the past where like I wrote 3 letters or 3 words and I had no idea what it was. In fact, it kind of reminded me of I'm sure some of you guys watched that WandaVision show with the beginning. They had the heart on the board. They were trying to figure out what it was for, and like they're freaking out the whole time. I think it's like the whole first episode to figure out what it is, like an old school sitcom, and then find out it's obviously something totally different than what they had guessed. But they just didn't write down enough info. So yeah, write down lots of info. That's my thought. Right when you're writing notes, like write out detailed notes for yourself, so you don't end up in that situation. All right, so we've got player enemy health. I got UI stuff. I think kind of figured out. I'll have a score. Score controller is good. Player death. Player death. I think would just be like a. Let's just add in a class here. So this would be listen to health. Reload on die. This is going to be my player. CS. Right, like that. That's my player class. Right. It listens to health and kills. Reloads the game if we die. So that I think that's pretty much all I need right there. Everything else would be kind of abstract or componentized away into other subcomponents like the health, the movement system, the bow, and the magic. So we'll go into the bow now. Let's add in a bow class. Makes sense. So add a to-do list. This would be my bow class. Shoots arrow. Serialized field for cooldown. Anything else? What else does it do? Yeah, that's it. Wow, that's super simple. So that's my bow.cs. It's literally just gonna shoot arrows constantly in the direction I'm firing whenever it's enabled. Okay, got my class there. And then you know what? I need the arrow class though, because the bow doesn't do anything without the arrow. So let's go add in an arrow.cs. How do I want that to look? Arrow.cs. It's going to fly forward, maybe heat seek. I don't know. I could add like a heat seeker arrow. It's going to deal damage on collision with health objects and destruct on collision with anything. So if it hits anything, it'll self-destruct, and if it hits a health object, it will deal damage to it as well. It's just a bow shooting out arrows or basic projectiles. And I think I want to add pooling. I'm thinking since this is going to be a beginner video and the game is going to be at a beginner level, I'm not going to do the pooling thing. So pooling makes a lot of sense once you hit performance issues, but if I'm going to keep this beginner friendly, adding pooling I think is going to be overcomplicated. So is there a way to just strike through this? Like say, hey, that was a bad idea. No, I'm gonna just let's add in a note of stuff I don't want to do. Use pooled prefab arrow. Watch this. Bam. So don't do these, even if tempted. So I feel tempted to add it, but I'm not gonna do it. So there we go. That looks good. Got my 2 classes. I've still got my notes up here and my very important note. All right, go back up. One more level. We'll go to enemy death. Enemy death. Well, how does enemy death work? Enemy death actually, I need a player animator or something that like cleans up death. So let's add a script here. Let's call this enemy death.cs, right? So it'll listen to health died event or on died. Let's call it like that health dot on died. I'm gonna make it a little bit more specific. So it'll be our current object's health dot on died. If we die, it will play or trigger death animation, and it will disable nav mesh, disable attack script. So it's going to do those three things, and this, we'll call this the enemy death. So the death script will be attached, and whenever we die, it'll say, "Hey, trigger our death animation, disable the nav mesh agent, and disable our attack script." I think that's enough to make everything kind of work in the death system without adding in anything more complicated. Seems good, and then it can do a cleanup on its own. So this would also do the corpse mesh cleanup. If we decide that we want to clear up the bodies and not leave them all laying around, this would do that. I think that makes sense, and it could play particles too if we wanted to or something. Maybe like a let's say play a death. Do I have a death particle? I don't know. Maybe play a death particle. We'll see. Those are like all the things that we want to do when the player or the enemy dies. Score system, I've already filled out my classes there. UI, I've got player magic. I'm still unsure on what I want that to be. Kind of all over the place on what the magic ability should be. And then the health pickup, that one I can figure out pretty easily though. Let's go add it. So it's a trigger collider, spins in place, um, adds um, adds health to health.cs on trigger enter player layer only. So we'll make it only collides with player. So NPCs walk through it. Let's do that. I'm gonna move that note right there. Cut, and we'll put it right here. So I'll note that I'll use a player physics layer. That way I kind of have an idea of how I'm going to define that so that the health pickup. Oh, let's add a title here. The health pickup will do essentially that. And I've got kind of an idea, and I want to just be clear that like while I'm planning these out and like figuring out what all these classes are going to do, this stuff could change, right? Like this is supposed to be the starting point to give me an idea of what I want to do and how I want to build things out, but not like lock me into exactly it has to be these things. But it gives me an idea of how stuff is going to go together and how things are kind of loosely going to hook up. So I think now I want to build out just a really quick architecture board that shows how things are tied together. There's not a whole lot that we have because the game is relatively simple, but I want to still build it up real quick. So I'm going to take out a board and I'm going to call this system design. I think I want to take my entire development plan and just drag it into system design for a moment. We'll go into, oh no, no, no. Let's go undo, undo. I don't want to do that because that rearranged my entire thing. Okay, so what do I want to do? Actually, really, what I want in the system design is all of the classes and how they're kind of interacting. So at the core of, I think all of my classes is the player health, right? Or the health. Let's go in here. Let's say health.cs. I've got my health object here, and then I've got projectiles. This is actually arrow.cs, or let's call this projectile. This is going to be all of my projectiles. Here, let's call this, how do I click on this? Let's change this. Make this arrow. Come on, bow and arrow. Can you get a bow and arrow? Oh, bow arrow. Well, there's a bow. I'll use that arrow. There's a question about saving system. I don't think I'm going to put that into this because there won't be enough just enough content and stuff in the video to really be able to save things outside of the high score. That's pretty much the only thing that I think will really do any saving like that. So here my projectiles are going to be coupled to health. Right? So projectiles need to know about health to do damage to them. I also am going to have a bow, and the bow is going to be coupled to the projectile. So it's going to launch the arrow, but the projectile could be other things, right? So projectile could be an arrow, or it could be like a fireball, I guess. So let's kind of note that. Let's make that a column instead. So I'll go from here. I think I can do that. Drag that as a column. Drag that as a column. Let's make this a no, what do I want to do this like as an arrow and a fireball? I th- I kind of feel like I do. No, I think I'll just make it a projectile so that it's a single one, so that whether it's a fireball or an arrow flying at you, it flies exactly the same. So let's call this projectiles. Um, and then bows should launch. Actually, you know what? Here, I don't need the. As I think about this, so I'll have projectiles here, and I'll have a board for my dragon. Oh wait, let's go back and actually just copy my dragon. What did I call it? Let's go to game design. Go to my enemies. My stationary dragon. Oh wait, no, it was in my player and enemy health. Where did I? Oh, in my enemy. Oh, sorry. In my enemy's board. Where is my enemy's board? There it is. I'm blind. Oh, so in here, this is the one I was looking for. So projectile attack. So I've got projectile attack that fires these things. I mean, that's really exactly the same as the bow, right? I feel so tempted. I'm not gonna combine them. I feel so tempted to combine them, the projectile attack.cs and the bow, but I think that there's gonna be benefit in keeping them separate. So let's keep them separate. So we'll go down here, we'll add another board. That'll be the projectile attack. But both of them will launch a projectile. So add in some arrows showing where my dependencies and references are going to be, and kind of get an idea of how I want to code this and how I'll know if things are going wrong. So if I start to see that like my bow is referencing health, probably made a mistake. Or if my projectile attack is referencing something's health, probably made a mistake because it should be launching a projectile that's doing that, not dealing with it itself. So the health system will then take some damage or whatever, right? And then we'll let's see, what do I have here? I have an enemy death and I have a player death script. So add in the .cs's and I'm gonna get rid of the space. I think I'm gonna leave the space. Obviously, I wouldn't put a space in a class name, but I'm gonna leave them here just to make it a little more obvious what's going on. So the player death is going to register for health event changed, and the enemy death will also register for health changed or health. It's really going to be on health died, or so. Let's add that in there. So I'm going to make a little note here that it's going to be a note. I'll call this on died. Oh, on died. I want to center my note. I'm gonna shrink it down a lot. Let's change it to just be a heading and make it transparent. So this would be like on died. It, oops, nope, add in there as a child. They're kind of right there. I just kind of want it as a label. I'll duplicate it here and do the same here. So it's gonna just register for the on died of health. So on both of those, and then do whatever thing it needs to do. I'll kind of line that up. It looks nice and pretty. Close enough. All right. Let's see. Next up, I've got my death things will register for health change. Oh, my UI system is going to register for the health change. Let's go take a look at that. So in our health, we update the UI with a UI health bar. Oh, and we have the UI score that's going to register for the death. So let's go add both of those, health bar and score. So say UI score.cs, UI health bar. Oh, I don't like how it adds the. Let's do one more board. Say health bar. I'm going to rename this, get my .cs, move this up here. So player health will also be bound to by the health bar. It'll register for on health changed. So let's add that there. We'll duplicate this note, drag it up here and call this on changed. So let's make it on health changed, make it more obvious. So that way, if anybody's reading it, they know exactly what we mean when we say on changed. There's no question of on what's changing. So on health changed. Can I rotate these? I don't know if I can. I don't think I can rotate it around, but who knows? Undo that. Okay, I don't know what that was. All right, so I've got my on health changed event here, And then UI score, that's going to change when an enemy dies, but it's actually not going to change directly, right? We have the score controller. So score controller.cs, or let's add it without the .cs. Yes. Let's go search for an icon here. Or see what we can find. There's got to be some good score icons. There we go. There's one score controller icon, and then that's going to bind into the score system for the UI score. So take my lines, drag them out. Score controller will register for on died. Really? I mean, yeah. Let's just duplicate again. I'm feeling like I've got a lot of eventing here for beginners. Hmm. A little bit scary. Maybe this should. Uh, I don't know. Let's think about it for a little while. So let's keep going. So we got my score controller here that'll listen to the enemy death on died. I'm thinking maybe these should just all register for on health changed and then deal with not, I don't know. I'm just thinking it through, Dick. Do I want to have multiple events coming off this health one? I guess I do. And that's just gonna fire it through. I just don't really like the chaining of the events, especially with it being on died again. Oh wait, you know what? I lied because this isn't even right. Boop. This doesn't exist like this. This is the benefit of planning. There's actually one more layer in here. This is the scoreable. CS. See, this is where I was saying I thought it was getting too complicated. That this definitely feels too complicated. Yep, scoreable is gone. That's too. It's too complicated. I can see it there visually and see kind of the flow there. I think the enemy death is enough that this could just give points. In fact, this could fire off a Unity event that just added points. I think. I like it. That might be a better idea. Let's do that. Ooh, do I want to do that? Let me think. I think it's a worthwhile teaching event, but I'm gonna do it that way. So that's what we'll do. We'll have the score controller is not coupled at all to enemies. Totally uncoupled. All right, here we go. Here's the new change. So UI score links up to score controller. Enemy death will now fire out an event. They go, hey, here's my event. Unity event. Undied. And then anything can listen to that. So what I'm thinking is that this score controller is just going to kind of listen for this. Here, let's maybe just, bam. I've got a Unity event on enemy died, and then that can just be registered right here. So the score controller can just kind of get hooked up as a target there so that it can add points. We could do whatever else, but then I can show people that when an enemy dies, you don't just have to do all of the hard coded things. We can just do Unity events for it. In fact, I think that I'll do that for the particle system. So if we want to do a death particle, that could be right here like this. So that could just register. I guess technically it's more like that. And then we do the same for like the death animation trigger, right? We could do that. Yeah, let's try. So this is what I'm thinking. We'll do a Unity event that fires off all these things, gives people kind of the ability to figure out how to add in more stuff. So that they've got a Unity event, they can just keep adding in more and more functionality. But they can also add score and other things without complicating. I feel like that's a whole lot better than a scoreable .cs, and then having two layers of OnDied. And again, this is why I like doing these designs like this because then I kind of visualize it and feel it out before I start coding myself into a corner and making a mess. So there we go. We've got our, let's see, what was that? Player. I just lost track. So system design. We've got our death. We've got our health bar. So we're in UI. We've got the score controller stuff going. And now on to player death. So the player.cs is just going to listen and reload on die. I think I already have that in here, right? Yeah, player death. That's this. Just listens to on died. The bow. The bow is already there. I've got that added. Wait, bow had a projectile or an arrow.cs. That's technically the projectile.cs. Let's rename that. My projectile.cs, which is the arrow now. And then we've got enemy death already hooked that up. What do you know? Got that figured out. Got the scoring system figured out. Got the UI figured out. I have not decided how to do magic, but I will figure out a health pickup. So let's create a shortcut for health pickup. I'm going to drag that into my system design board. I'm going to take this right here, and health pickup will just bind in with health. That's just going to kind of like do a direct link, like you grab health, health. It'll look for a health on your character, on your player, essentially. Um, wow, I think that's it. I think that kind of gives me everything that I need to build it, except for the magic side. So I want to check the chat real quick, talk a little bit, see what people think, and then go over stuff a little bit and see where we're at from there. I realize I've been talking for like 2 hours nonstop, so let's just chat and see what's up. So okay, let's pop up this first question real quick. So there was a question with the Unity event. Do the enemies keep track of their score and send it with the Unity event, or does the score controller know which enemy is worth how many points? What I was thinking was that I'll just add a so essentially on the prefab for the enemy, in its death, I'll just add a connect to the score controller, add 1 point or add 3 points. So I'll have an add points method on the score controller. Let me just kind of like note that. So I'll put an let's see, duplicate. So this would be like add points and mount, right? Like oh, kind of like that. So it'd have like a method on the score controller called add points and then just hook it in with the Unity event. Now, I think if I was going to do a lot of things that had different scores more than just three, I would probably consider something else. But if I'm just going to have three prefabs that add score, I probably don't need a full script for that. And I like the flexibility of the Unity events. If I want to have a whole bunch of them, then I don't want to have to hook up that event on more than three things, right? But if I only have a couple of them, then hooking up the event I think is less work than the code and a little bit more flexible, especially again for the context of hey, go try out your own stuff on top of that. So that was kind of the thought. Okay, let's see what else we got. Okay, but yeah, you'd be able to define the points in the inspector. Let's see what else we got here. Any other questions? Does anybody have any questions, by the way? Here, so somebody asked if this was a variant of UML. I don't think so, but it's just a really cool tool that Andreas recommended and I've been using ever since, and it's just really helpful. I don't know why did I AMOUNT? Let's fix that. UT. I know why I did it, but I didn't like that it said AMT. So yeah, I'm not sure what it is. It's basically like when I've explained it to people, it's like Visio that doesn't suck. Like it's just cool because I can get in, like drill into anything, add whatever I want. Um, hey, let me just like while I wait for questions and stuff, I want to just show like some of the cool board things. So let's go into like the I don't know. I'll just drag in a new one. Go into an empty board and just try one of these out. So you go into like the game design boards. Let's switch down to a different view so you can see it for a second. So go to game design. Where is that at? Game design. There we go. You can go to like world building, get like a level and a map and stuff and kind of like idea stuff. Story outline, RPG campaign map, which I thought this one was kind of cool. You like figure out like here's where you're starting, you're going through like area by area, type of stuff that would be there. Dungeon map, kind of cool. And then was there a level design? Neat. Storyboard. And then the character profile I think I showed. And the game design document I think I showed just has all of the little things on it. So there's a lot of cool like game development ones, but there's other stuff in here too. A lot of them are kind of overlaid to or overlapping. So like mood boards and like project plan. I think that's in a bunch of them just with slightly different default stuff. They got a lot of cool stuff in here, especially like for software stuff. The other thing I noticed was like is it wasn't just useful for game design stuff, but like all of the software side of things. Like I kind of like the task boards, the agile task boards, because they were a lot like Trello, but a little bit more flexible. I don't think you could. Yeah, Trello's got like a ridiculous amount of extensions and stuff, but I never really use any of them, so it's a little bit more flexible for me than like default Trello, or I guess a lot more than the default Trello. Uh, anyway, I'm gonna shut up about that and just look at questions now. 'Cause, I don't think anybody wants to just hear me talk about like things I think are neat. Right? see what else we got. Um, okay, so what was this one? If you had a finite amount of arrows, where would you check to see if you'd run out? That would definitely be in the bow. So in the bow, I would be checking to see like how many arrows I had left before firing, and if I was ready to fire before I tried to fire. I think that's where it would be. And then if I was doing pooling too, I would probably do that in the bow instead of instantiating a arrow. I just grab one from a pool that that bow would keep track of. Since there's only one thing that would be doing the pool of the arrows, I'd probably just do it right there. And then maybe do the same thing on the projectile attack would keep a pool of its own fireballs or something. I don't imagine a lot of them being reused across NPCs or anything like that. Okay. Oh, it's already an OOP mess. Yep. 2 hours already OOP mess. I love it. But yeah, I mean yeah. If you don't like OOP stuff, it would definitely feel super messy. And I think that it's important to minimize the mess when you're developing your game and designing stuff, right? Like this, I can follow really easily and probably like with this plan right here, you could implement the entire thing in probably like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Right, go through step by step, assuming that you know all of the steps involved. You go through it and do it, and then not get lost, getting mixed up. Like I just not knowing where things are tied up or how things are kind of linked together. So. So okay, what else we got? Why not using a game manager? So far I haven't like there hasn't been a scenario for it. Like there's been nothing here that needs a game manager. There's no long-term game state. Like the game starts you in the middle of an area, you explore around and kill bad guys, right? There's nothing that's not accounted for right now that needs to be in some global class that I can think of right now. And I try to minimize big global classes in general because it tends to get a lot harder to work with, a lot harder to extend and build on, and just it ends up being a nightmare almost every time. Sometimes it works out, but almost every time, 9 out of 10 times, it ends up being code that you wish you could just delete or do just delete. So I try to minimize that stuff. But I mean, there could be a use for a game manager, just not big enough yet that there's really context or a need for it. There's nothing here where I don't already have an easy link that's not kind of a big wiry mess. That's a problem. I mean, really, like we have a very simple system kind of built around health essentially, and projectiles a little bit, and then on enemy death. I mean, all of this is essentially kind of firing on enemy death, and then we have a separate kind of score controller system. So it's not a very complex system yet. Let's go. So let's see. Just recently joined. Can I get a summary of what's going on? Oh yeah. So if you want, you can also just click on the board down below and go take a look and preview it all. But the gameplay mechanics, the core of what the design is supposed to be, is kind of right here. Just to give an example of like what we want to build, and then the rest of it is just kind of detailing out what the plan is to actually build. Let's see. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize that I didn't click on that question though. Hey Jason, how are you? Been up to much lately? I am doing great. Thank you for asking. Been super busy, but having a blast at it. And somebody else asked why the stream was in 720. I think that was my fault. I started it with restream at 720 on accident. I didn't realize that. Somebody asked if I've tried Mural instead of Millinote. I have not, but I will check it out. Mural digital workspace for visual collaboration. Interesting. No, I haven't seen it. It looks okay. I mean, it doesn't look as cool looking at the visual. Oh, maybe looking at further down. I'll have to give it a try, but I think like just looking at like really quickly at the images doesn't look as themed to what I want to do. But I'll definitely try it out and see because every time I don't try out tools that people recommend, I end up giving them a try like a year or two later, and I'm like, why didn't I try that before? The same with this. Like I think I'd heard about this Millinote tool a couple times before I actually gave it a shot and then tried it and was, yeah, I wish I'd been using this for a while. So, same with like JetBrains Rider and lots of other things. So yeah, I'll give it a shot. Let's see. I want to hear you talk about things you think are neat. Oh yeah, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Oh, somebody's asking about maybe a scriptable object. There's really I think there are some areas where I could add scriptable object stuff, but probably not yet in here. I think that it's a little too complex for a beginner game like this. Where I mean, the goal with this is like a game that high school kid with no programming experience and just a little bit of time and dedication and the ability to read and write some simple code and kind of line things up at least could build a game or build their first 3D shooting game type thing. So that's kind of my goal. So you don't have to have a lot of experience, can go through the plan of building a game. This is going to be like a video for like how to make a game in Unity 3D edition. So one of the most popular videos I have on YouTube right now is how to build a game, and it's 2D. It's like Angry Birds. You guys might have seen it. You shoot off birds and stuff. But I really want to do a 3D version of that that's just available for all the people who want to get into game development and just get kind of put off by the 2D thing. Don't realize that it's really going to be almost the same code, just a little tiny bit of difference. So, and that's the goal for this game here. Someone recommended ClickUp in chat too. I've never tried that before, so I'll have to check that out as well. And what tools do you recommend? The main one, definitely Writer. So, like, out of everything, if there's anything that I would recommend for developers, if cost isn't an issue, or you can get the free educational version, Writer is more than worth it. If it's a money problem, then totally get it. Or you can't get the free one, then use one of the other options. But in my experience, Writer is by far just the best code editor. It saves me a lot of time when I'm building games, and it's more than worth the cost. Let's see what else we got here. All right, so somebody's asking if we've ever hit a layer limit on large projects. So it's talking about using enemies to avoid pickups in the area based on layers. I haven't really. I've come close in some games where I felt like, oh man, I'm getting close to it, but then I ended up making some changes and just didn't stay as an issue. Um, and I think I probably wasn't going to run into it anyway. But I would say no, I haven't. But if you are hitting it, you might have to just kind of refactor and change the way that you're doing some of those things. That's tough, but yeah, that's something that I've got fresh in my mind of how I fixed it either. Though, unfortunately. Um, Cool. So here was a good one. Could you do a tutorial on your preferred way of handling passing data between scenes, like passing difficulty from main menu to gameplay scene? Yes, I like to keep objects. I can do a tutorial on it too, but I think I did a couple on multi-scene game development and loading multiple scenes. But essentially, what I like to do is keep objects around that have a life cycle throughout the whole game. So if I'm going to load into multiple scenes, that is a case where I may have a game manager type thing, or maybe a player that persists across levels, or a scene manager, or something like that. That's going to exist, and it's going to exist, get created once in the beginning, and then just stay around for the whole life of the game, not go away. And it'll keep track of things like your difficulty settings, the current state of the player, what the player's health is, the score, those types of things. I usually keep them around instead of reloading and recreating them after every scene load. I find it's just easier, a little bit less messy, and the code just ends up cleaner. My face is missing. I gotta like let's switch that up. How do I switch these to? There we go. Take that one. Nope, not that. Not that. Not that. Hold on. Let me get rid of my question, and then if I drag this over there, there we go. Perfect. That's better. Now I can see everything. Oh no, I've just accidentally lost everybody's questions. So if you had more questions, please type them in. I hit the wrong button and accidentally cleared them. So just type in the other questions in chat if you had them again. I totally blew everybody's questions out of the water hitting the wrong button up here trying to switch and rearrange things. So Alex said thanks. You're very welcome. That's the only comment I've got visible right now. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, more talk about layers and stuff. Yeah, I can definitely see it getting short on layers for stuff. So it's been, like I said, somewhat problematic, but it's been a while since I had to deal with it. Is there a good place to find free assets for Unity? My favorites are the Unity Asset Store and Open Game Art. So I usually go to the asset store first because it's the fastest and easiest way to get a hold of stuff and just drop it right into the game. And then there's lots of cheap things available too. But then open game art is great for just finding other things, things that I can't find, especially 2D stuff and music and things. It's really good for that. Why is Writer superior to Visual Studio? The reason that I like it is that it gives really good code recommendations for how to fix and improve things in a Unity context, and it seems like the tooltips and the pop-ups and the recommendations it gives are actually Unity specific, where Visual Studio and VS Code and stuff give you more C sharp and I feel like more enterprise and web developer targeted refactorings and things. Um, where writer actually has a lot of context on Unity. It'll tell you, don't do this thing because in Unity there are specific differences and reasons that it could be a problem. And it's just nice and fast and snappy. Runs unit tests really well. I don't know. It's just so I would say you have to try it and you have to try it and force yourself to use it for a while to really get stuck. I had to force myself to use it for a month and not change. And once I did that, I didn't want to go back. Right. Before that, there's a little bit of a learning curve and a hump to get over. But once you get over that, for me, it was just a big difference. And it's been that way for almost everybody that I've talked to about it. They all kind of have the same thought where know, they just love it. I mean, it even gets things like you're typing in code, it will verify and auto or spell check or IntelliSense your layers, like your physics layers. It'll tell you like what things are assigned on prefabs, what things are referenced on prefabs. It just does lots of stuff. All right, let me scroll up and see what the other questions were. Okay, so any tips on how to overcome the beginning stages of game development until you have something tangible? Yeah, I mean the first thing is get the core gameplay loop going and the key systems in before you polish. And that was kind of one of the things I wanted to do here was focus on getting the actual systems all figured out and the development plan for like how I would build out the game, get all of the core things in there. And then after that's done, you can start building upon it, right? That's when you start making it like, oh, the bow is cool. The bow has upgrades. The bow does triple shots, and the enemies do these special powers, and there are cool things that you can go explore and find and all that. And then other upgrades and random crap. Like all of that stuff should come after you get that core loop done and get the core gameplay loop done. I'd say as quick as possible. Like get that focused, like focus on getting that done, get it released or out there and share it with people, and then start improving on it because it's really easy to just spend a lot of time focusing on like a sub part of your game or a little system and never actually build the game. And that happens and kills a lot of games. I think where they get so deep into one little piece and not into the actual game. 'Cause they're yeah, I don't know. I think feel like you get tunnel vision, you just get focused in on something too much. Like, I could spend, 3 days working on making the dragon super awesome, and he does all these cool things, but my character still doesn't I still don't have a game, right? Or whatever the thing is, or I say 3 days, like, that's a long time, but I mean, you expand this out, into a real environment where you're building out a game with a big team. It could be that you're spending weeks or months building out, like, just the player movement system, and you never did anything else, like, or you just did some world building and built out some enemies, and that's it. Like, you build out the whole gameplay loop, then start improving all the things is kind of my general recommendation there. Alright, somebody asked about scriptable object architecture. I wanna say I think I did a video about this recent I guess I did a live stream about this, and I got a video I'm working on for this. So scriptable object architecture is good stuff. There's some cool things you can do with it. Interesting. Definitely worth looking at for anybody who's curious about it. Have you been able to do anything with the board limit for the free version of Millinote? So in the free version, I've been able to build out quite a bit. You get like I think it's 100 cards by default, and then you can get up to 100 more by I think referring friends or something. I'm not sure exactly how that works. Right now, this one's on the unlimited one, so I could just drop in tons and tons of example ones. But if you don't use the like generate example content stuff, I found that like even on the free plan, I can definitely design out basically a full game. So each one of these cards counts as a thing, and I think you get, like I said, 100. So 1, 2, 3. Now I'm probably at like 40 or 50 total for this game design right here. And yeah, I don't know. That's one thing I'm not sure on. Once you build out a huge thing, like how many cards that would actually be and how big it would be. I'm thinking it would probably eventually get past the 100, but probably not on a smaller indie game size thing, but more on an enterprise one. I think their pricing was relatively cheap too. It was like a set price, like $9 or something, um, for their monthly unlimited plan. I don't really remember all the pricing details, but it was definitely worth it enough that I signed up on my so I'm using one account here. I've got another account that I signed up for, just on the unlimited plan because it made sense, and a lot of people a couple people I've talked to who are close friends who started using it also just did the same. I like how I'm dragging this around, like, you guys can't see it because it's down there in that little tiny corner. Doesn't really matter though. It's me blabbing about nonsense. Let's see. Would you be willing to do informative video about garbage collection? What causes it and how to avoid it? Sure, I'd probably do another one of those. I've done some in the past, but it's it's a really common topic that a lot of people talk about. It's probably something that I could do like another video about and just kind of give the high level of why it happens, why it's bad, and how to avoid it. It seems like a good one to do. I'll add it to my list. Oh yeah, Alex mentions that Writer has great syntax highlighting for shaders. It has syntax highlighting for JSON too. So you import like a JSON file in there, and it'll highlight that. It looks beautiful by default. I don't remember if Visual Studio will do that by now. It probably will too, though. Let's see. Let's see. Thoughts on taking on smaller projects as a break from your main project? That's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, it just depends. I wouldn't get distracted if you don't have to, but if you need the break or it's just a financial thing, then it can make sense for sure. Sometimes just taking a little pause away from things can help a lot too. But I would try to minimize interruptions and stuff if you can just kind of plow through and get it done. All right, let's see what else we got. Should make a class per coin called coins that are collected. Yeah, that is definitely something we could do. Like, if I was gonna do that, it would probably just be like another system down here in the bottom that I would just drop down there like a coin. Can I swap these back for that? They'd probably have like a coin system down here or something that I would set up. But I think I'll skip on those. I don't want to overcomplicate this thing. Um, how to stay motivated? Constant progress. That's by far like the best thing. Make a little bit of progress every day. Like the number one thing to stay motivated for me is like actually getting something done. Like I can check things off early in the morning. It'll keep me motivated to do things later that day and the next day, and just constantly find things that you can get done and kind of knock off the list. Another thing I like to do is just schedule things like this live stream, so that way I have a deadline of a thing I have to be ready for it. I know that I'm going to be doing it, and make sure that I get the thing done. So yeah, constant, just make constant little progress on whatever the thing is. If you have a design plan like this, like you can obviously just go through and like take the if it's a project, you just go through, take the next thing that you want to work on, get that done and check it off. Or if it's something else, I just do a little bit of work every morning on the thing and push it forward. It's easy to it's a lot easier to get motivated when you've actually done something. I've and just like everybody, like I'll wake up and sometimes I'll have days where like the morning starts off bad. I don't really get a lot done, and then I find like by the end of the day, I feel like I've got absolutely nothing done, accomplished nothing, and it feels terrible. Um, then a lot what I can do to stop that, and what I try to force myself to do to stop that is just when I get up first thing in the morning, or second or third thing in the morning, relatively early in the morning, just find some things that I can knock off of my list of stuff that I need to get done. Just a couple of things I can accomplish. They usually motivate and just kind of energize me to get the next things done and keep going. Let's see what else we got here. Man, I've been talking for a long time. Um, okay, so when having a class for movement system using a finite state machine system, should I use SRP to separate combat states to their own combat script or keep them in a movement script? I'm thinking in this case, what you probably want to do if you're using an FSM here is have the FSM handling essentially what it's essentially handling the switch between the combat scripts versus the movement scripts. So in your, in your move to player state, that script would handle, moving towards the player and getting in range, right? And then in your attacking player state, you're just dealing with attacking, which might also include moving and attacking at the same time, depending on the NPC. Um, yeah, so I think that now what you might want to do though is, so here, let's, we've got some game design board stuff. Let's actually go in and design this real quick. Let's set up a board right here. So say I just made this FSM combat board, right? So we've got a state here, and the state is like move to player, and we've got another state that's attack player. Maybe we've got one that's flee, and maybe another one for dying. Whatever the states of your entity are, or your FSM are, right? So here we would have like the move to player handles actually going to them, running to them, and stopping there, then switching to attack whenever it's in range. So it could go like A starts in move, can switch over to attack, or it could switch over to flee if you did something that like makes them so that they get scared of players, right? And then when they fight, they eventually can go from any state into dying, right? Now, the question, I guess, is should the move to player be handling movement stuff and then the attack player be handling movement stuff? Um, or another alternative, and the way that you might want to set that up, and I think you're probably thinking, is having like a player movement, and this would handle actually moving the player around and getting the player into position, aiming the player, and all that stuff. And then both of these essentially link up. So your player movement would be linked to your move to player state would have a reference to player movement and say, hey, player movement, go move to this position at this speed or whatever the thing is, however you want that movement to work. It could be setting up a nav mesh agent or moving with root motion animation or whatever the movement system is. And then your attack player one could also do that. So it could say, hey, maybe it doesn't move as much, but it needs to kind of edge around or get behind or stay in range if the player moves like in the middle of an attack or something. So it might also tie into player movement, or it might just tie into player movement to say, "Hey, stop moving. I'm swinging a sword, and I don't move when I'm swinging a sword." So that's kind of the two different ways that I would consider that. Yeah, we can zoom in a little bit too. Get a quick little look of what that would look like. Um, I hope that makes sense. So let's go on. What else we got? Setting realistic goals. Sorry, just going through here, looking at notes. So on the question of like how to stay motivated and stuff, and setting realistic goals is definitely a good idea. Um, is there anything else here? And I feel like I'm running out of questions here. You gonna do a tutorial on IK? I actually yes, I have one of those. I thought I probably didn't finish it yet, but I have one of those that's in progress too, just on essentially some basic IK and animation. The animator, what is that system called now? I've forgotten now. There's an IK animation system that I've totally spaced on the name of. Built into Unity now or in the package manager. So I was doing that and just some foot IK and some other stuff in the video. But I don't think I've wrapped that one up yet. All right. Man, I want to do a full game design, but I'm really tired. So I think that maybe we'll do that one tomorrow when we've got everybody else on the call. After we chat about other stuff, we go through and just do like another full design on stuff. If anybody's got other stuff, I guess just leave a comment after I wrap up the stream here. Let me know, what other things you want to see. We'll do another game design. I said I want to do it with a friend who's an actual like game designer for AAA companies and does all kinds of game design constantly and is really r- good at game design. Where like I feel like I can just kind of slap together ideas and copy some stuff. Like he actually comes up with cool stuff all the time. Um, my friend Brad used to say that he played like every game ever made, so he knows everything about it. I'm gonna give him shit about it tomorrow too. It'll be fun. Um, so yeah, if you're interested in that, you want to see more about game design stuff, just make sure that you show up tomorrow and do it with Charles, and I believe Jason is going to be there too, and then my buddy Salim. It's going to be a blast. So, oh, what's my favorite game right now? I think it's still Magic. Like I've been playing Magic cards still. I've been playing them online with Zoom and stuff with friends that we used to play in person. Outside of that, Magic Online. It's just terrible. Like it's like yeah, it's an obsession. I gotta break. I would love to hear more about your work on industry on in games and what's this? Thoughts about the net trying to relaunch Vanguard. Oh, okay. Yeah, that would that's yeah, I think maybe I'll talk a bit about that tomorrow. Salim worked on Vanguard with me, so maybe we can chat a bit about that. That would be fun. I talk about I didn't know that there was a the net was trying to relaunch Vanguard, though. I'll have to dig into that. So I think we'll kick it off again tomorrow, early in the morning, 8 Pacific, maybe it was 9 Pacific. So sometime super early for me tomorrow. And yeah, Magic the Gathering. um, and, yeah, I hope to see everybody there, and it should be a lot of fun. I think we'll just make some more game stuff, more game design, and I think we're not just gonna do game design, though. We're just gonna talk about game development in general and go over a whole bunch of stuff with more than just me, so that it's not just me, blabbing and kind of showing people how to do things. It'll just be a fun time for everyone. So, I guess, I'm gonna wrap it here because 'cause I'm running out of breath and need to take a break. I just wanna say thanks everybody for coming out and watching. Definitely do this a lot more in the future, and I will see you all early tomorrow morning. Thanks again. I have to figure out where the button is that says like Jason's going away. I figure it. There it is. They're still getting used to restream. All right, bye everybody. Thanks again.